Something is wrong with the silence of the high peaks, a rhythmic breathing that doesn't belong to the wind or the shifting ice. You were told nothing survives up here above the clouds, yet the thermal imaging on your monitor is screaming with a signature that should be impossible. A heartbeat, fast and steady, is tracking your every move from the shadows of the crags, and you realize too late that the ultimate predator of the plains has found a new home in the frost. Imagine a world where the laws of nature have been violently rewritten, where the golden ghost of the African savanna is transplanted into the jagged, frozen heart of the Himalayas. We have always known the cheetah as the master of the sun-drenched grasslands, a creature of heat and dust, built for a sprint that lasts seconds. But what happens when that speed is forced to adapt to the thin air and the blinding white of a permanent winter? The result is not just a biological curiosity, it is a nightmare of evolution that turns the most hospitable mountain ranges into a slaughterhouse. The transformation begins with the coat. The iconic golden fur, dotted with black rosettes, would be a death sentence in the snow. Over generations of brutal selection, or perhaps through a localized genetic mutation, the cheetah would shed its warmth for a thick, double-layered pelt the color of a winter storm. Its spots would fade into gray smudges, camouflaging it against the granite outcrops and the swirling blizzards. To look at it would be to see a phantom, a blur of white motion that disappears the moment you blink. The physical demands of the mountain would reshape its very skeleton. On the flat plains, the cheetah uses its non-retractable claws like track spikes to grip the earth. In the mountains, those claws would become crampons, hardened and sharpened to bite into solid ice and sheer rock faces. Its paws would broaden, developing a thick padding of fur between the toes to act as natural snowshoes, allowing it to glide over deep drifts where its prey would sink and perish. This is a creature that no longer waits for the perfect moment to sprint. It stalks with the patience of a glacier before detonating with a force that the mountain cannot contain. But the real horror lies in the respiratory shift. At high altitudes, oxygen is a luxury, yet the cheetah is a machine that runs on air. Its nasal passages would expand, cooling the air before it hits the lungs, while its heart would grow larger and more efficient, pumping oxygen-rich blood through a body that never stops shivering to stay warm. While you struggle for every breath, gasping as the thin air claws at your throat, this predator is breathing with ease, its metabolism a furnace fueled by the high-calorie meat of mountain goats, snow leopards, and anything else unlucky enough to cross its path. The conflict of this existence is a constant battle against the cold. In the savanna, the cheetah's greatest enemy is overheating after a chase. In the snowy mountains, the enemy is the loss of energy. Every hunt is a gamble with death. If it misses its target, the caloric loss could be fatal. This makes the mountain cheetah far more aggressive and desperate than its African cousin. It cannot afford to be picky. It doesn't just hunt for food, it hunts to survive the night, driven by a primal hunger that makes it take risks no other feline would consider. Think of the snow leopard, the current king of the heights. It is a master of stealth and power, but it is slow. It relies on the ambush. Now, introduce a predator that can clock 60 miles per hour on a frozen ridge. The snow leopard wouldn't even see the attack coming. One moment, the ledge is empty, the next, a white streak has closed the gap of 100 yards in a heartbeat. The hierarchy of the mountains would be shattered in a single season. The apex predators we know would become nothing more than scavengers, living off the scraps of a killer they cannot outrun. For the human explorers who venture into these dead zones, the danger is psychological as much as it is physical. You expect the cold to be your primary threat. You prepare for frostbite, for avalanches, and for thinning air. You do not prepare for a predator that can match your snowmobile for speed. You find tracks in the morning that look like a cheetah's, but the size is wrong, they are larger, deeper, and the stride indicates a creature that is comfortable on a 45-degree incline. You feel the eyes on the back of your neck, but when you turn your flashlight toward the peaks, there is only the dancing snow. The tension of a hunt in this environment is a masterclass in atmospheric dread. The cheetah doesn't need to hide behind bushes here. It hides in the whiteout. During a blizzard, when visibility drops to zero, the cheetah is in its element. It uses its highly developed sense of hearing to track the crunch of your boots or the rhythmic clicking of your climbing gear. It moves in a semi-crouch, its long tail acting as a counterbalance on the narrow ledges, ice fixed on the heat signature of your body. You are a glowing beacon of warmth in a world of blue and gray, and it is a cold-blooded shadow coming to claim that heat. Biologically, the what-if scenario suggests a creature that has traded its thin, aerodynamic frame for something more robust. It would have a layer of subcutaneous fat, a rarity for the lean cheetah, giving it a slightly bulkier, more menacing silhouette. Its eyes, usually amber or brown, might shift toward a piercing, icy blue, better suited for the high UV environment of the mountaintops. This is a version of the cheetah that has forgotten the sun, a creature of the moon and the frost, a relic of a climate shift that shouldn't have happened. The ecological impact would be a domino effect of extinction. The blue sheep and the ibex, accustomed to outclimbing their pursuers, would find no sanctuary. If a cheetah can run up a slope as easily as a human walks a hallway, there is nowhere to hide. The mountain peaks would become a graveyard of bleached bones, and the silence of the heights would grow heavier, weighted by the presence of a ghost that never sleeps. The very air would feel charged with the threat of a sudden, violent end. In the dark thriller of the high altitudes, the mountain cheetah represents the ultimate subversion of expectations. We look at the snow and see a barrier, it looks at the snow and sees a playground. We look at the steep cliffs and see a dead end, it sees a launch pad. The conflict between human technology and this mutated natural force creates a terrifying realization: we are not the masters of adaptation we think we are. Our thermal suits and oxygen tanks are fragile, while the mountain cheetah is a product of the very environment trying to kill us. The story of the snowy mountain cheetah is one of survival at any cost. It is a testament to the terrifying flexibility of life. If a creature can bridge the gap between the scorching equator and the freezing peaks, what else is hiding in the corners of the world, waiting for the climate to shift just enough to let them out? The mountain cheetah is a warning. It is the shadow in the snowstorm, the blur in the corner of your eye, and the sound of a sprint that never ends. When the sun sets behind the jagged peaks, and the temperature drops to 40 below, the mountain doesn't just get cold, it gets hungry. You huddle in your tent, listening to the canvas flap in the wind, but beneath that sound, there is something else. A scraping of claws on the ice. A low, guttural purr that vibrates through the frozen ground. You realize that you aren't just in a wilderness, you are in a territory. And the owner of that territory is the fastest thing on four legs, redesigned by the ice to be the last thing you ever see. The terror isn't just in the speed, it's in the impossibility. Every time you check your GPS or your radio, you're looking for a sign of the world you know. But out there, in the swirling white, the world you know has been replaced by a primal, frozen law. The cheetah has adapted. It has conquered the frost. It has taken the speed of the sun and turned it into the weapon of the winter. And as the shadow crosses the threshold of your camp, you understand the final truth of the high peaks: the cold doesn't kill you, the things that love the cold do. The legend of the white cheetah would spread through the mountain villages, spoken of in hushed tones by those who survived the higher passes. They would call it the breath of the peak, a spirit that moves faster than a scream. They would tell stories of entire herds of yaks slaughtered in a single night, not by a pack of wolves, but by a lone, silver streak that left no tracks in the deep snow. The mystery of its existence would baffle scientists, who would argue over how such a transition could occur, but for those on the mountain, the how doesn't matter. Only the where matters, and the answer is always behind you. In this dark reality, the mountains are no longer a place of spiritual reflection or athletic challenge. They are a combat zone where the rules are set by a predator that has bypassed millions of years of evolution in a desperate bid for life. The snowy mountain cheetah is the personification of the thriller genre, a constant, underlying threat that can erupt into lethal violence at any moment, set against a backdrop of isolation and unforgiving nature. It is the ultimate what-if, a chilling reminder that nature's most beautiful killers are often its most adaptable. As you stare into the white void of the blizzard, you start to see patterns in the snow. You see the flick of a long, fur-covered tail. You see the glint of amber eyes reflecting your own fear. You realize that the mountain isn't empty. It is full of a presence that has been watching you since you crossed the timberline. The cheetah doesn't need to rush, it knows you have nowhere to go. It knows the altitude is slowing you down, thickening your blood, and dulling your senses. It is waiting for the moment your heart rate spikes, the moment you realize you are the prey. The final conflict is not a fight, it is a chase that ends before it begins. On the flat ice of a mountain plateau, there is no cover. There is only the distance between you and the predator. In the savanna, you might have a chance to see it coming across the grass. Here, in the blinding glare of the snow, the cheetah is invisible until it is within striking distance. Its lungs draw in the freezing air, its muscles coil like steel springs, and with a silent explosion of frost, it closes the gap. The last thing you hear isn't the wind. It's the sound of 60 miles per hour hitting the silence. The snowy mountain cheetah is the shadow of our own fears of the unknown. It represents the unpredictability of a world in flux, where the boundaries between habitats are blurring. It is the dark side of evolution, the part that reminds us that survival isn't about grace or beauty, it's about who can kill the fastest in the harshest conditions. As the snow continues to fall, burying the evidence of the hunt, the mountain returns to its silent vigil, home to a ghost that was never supposed to exist, but now reigns supreme over the ice.